Isaac Kako this week, reckon he gets up?
Yeah, I think he'll be medically available. We'll have a look at him today. We've got our main session tomorrow, so we've still got a bit of time to make a decision. But yeah, I think he'll be. Look, if he plays, it'll be somewhat of a risk because we pushed him pretty close to the line, but he's been fantastic in his rehab, and we'd love to have him out there. But we just got to weigh up a decision on risk reward. I mean, the temptation round one, even though we've had opening round, it feels like it's more important than any other game. But we've just got to make a decision which is in Isaac's best interest and certainly in our best interest. But we're certainly not ruling him out. Put it that way.
What best describes how you're feeling ahead of the start of your season as a coach?
I feel the same way as I do at the start of every season, whether it's over a fair period of time as a player or coach, which is you're stepping into a bit of the unknown. You work so hard in terms of your preparation throughout the year, and there's a long period that goes into the planning and training, but you still, even with the benefit of playing practice games and match simulations, you're not really sure how you're going to go against genuine opposition in a game that counts for 4 points. So it's always the same. It's a sense of trepidation, but also a sense of excitement. But if that, say to the players, if you don't have a bit of natural competitive anxiety, then you probably shouldn't be playing.
How much stronger is the side that you'll field on Friday night compared to the side that you had to wheel out towards the end of last year?
Well, it's like, I think the benefit this year, outside of our 5 draftees plus Killian Burke from Ireland, there's only really one player on our list who hasn't played AFL footy, and he was very close to being selected. So I think that last year, while it presented its challenges, means that we've got better depth in terms of guys who have played. But there's no doubt when you look at the inclusions of guys who missed the back half of last year, whether that's Parrish, Caldwell, Caddy, you name half the team, having them back in is a welcome return.
New skipper, of course, this time as opposed to last year. Does that bring a different feel at all for you?
Well, I think we moved really quickly to formulate our leadership group. We wanted that done before Christmas. So while it is new, and it's certainly his first game, it's not as if it was only announced last week. So our leadership group is pretty different. We've got players like Braden Fiorini, who's come in and made a real impact. Jai Caldwell and Sam Durham are welcome additions in that leadership structure. And so Andy's really well supported, but Andy was our vice captain, so it's different, there's no doubt about that, but it's not a massive change.
How real is the Essendon? I know the Essendon Hawthorn rivalry is always talked up, but given what happened last year in the trade period, does it add a bit more extra? Do you expect there to be a bit of extra spice in this one?
Yeah, well, there might be an extra 10, 15,000 people there. And I think this is always the great thing. I don't want to talk it down because I've said before publicly that my football childhood was framed around Hawthorn Essendon games. They were, I grew up watching those games as my sort of foundation with the game, and I still remember them. They were, so there's no point talking them down. I'd prefer to talk them up. I think it's fantastic. I think it's great that we get to play in these games, and the rivalry's real. There's no doubt. Certainly from our perspective, don't want to speak for them, but and what you're referring to at the end of last year, does it add spice? Probably. But what do we do as professionals? We all the boring stuff. We focus on the controllables, the things that we can execute. And so while there'll be a big build up to the game, and rightfully so, and no doubt it'll probably break our record in terms of attendance. So that'll be fantastic for our club and a fantastic game. But for our players, we've got to focus on the things that we've been training all pre-season.
Do you lean into that message at all with the players in terms of the rivalry, or do you see it as that they just decide themselves how that works as a player?
Yeah, they just, as much as they do sort of live in the bubble, they're not going to be able to avoid it. So it is what it is. We don't. But the point I'm trying to make here is we don't have to say, hey guys, do you know that this is a really big game and we've got a really fierce rivalry with Hawthorn? I think they're well aware of that.
Is there anything different? I know it's unique. It just seems unique that Zach's playing against a side that he was so desperate to try and join last year. Do you have to address how to go about it with him, or is that something you leave him to his own devices with? How do you approach it? Because it seemed like a unique challenge situation.
Yeah, we knew we were playing Hawthorn round one well before trade period. I announced it at the best and fairest. Josh Bowler wasn't happy with that, but it's like we got ahead of it. So I knew it. We all knew, and Zach knew. So this is not something that we've had to address this week. We've known this for 6 months, so we're well prepared. And in my experience with the best players, they prepare themselves unbelievably well physically, but even more so mentally. And I've seen some strong, resilient characters in my time in footy. Zach Merritt's at the top of the top echelon in terms of guys who have resilience. And so, of course, my job as coach is to support him. But with those guys, my experience tells me just to get out of the way and let him do his thing.
Brad, what do you glean from the GWS game in terms of things you can potentially exploit Hawthorn on?
GWS are a very good side. That's the challenge. We can't just look at what they did and say, let's go and do that. All their good players played well. They've got a good system, and I think the last 2 games, the Bulldogs game in the practice game and GWS, Hawthorn have played 2 really good opponents. And 3 of the top 4 from last year got beaten in opening round. I think it speaks to how tight the competition is, and there's been a fair bit of talk in the off-season and excitement or questions around things like wildcard, but there's going to be, you name the number, but certainly more than 10 teams that are capable of beating any team on their day. And Hawthorn have had 2 good opponents, so we look at that, but we're also not sitting there saying we can just do what the Bulldogs did or what GWS did.
Is there something that surprised you as a coach watching opening round, watching all these new rules in action?
Not really. I think it's played out pretty much. It's been a follow-on from Match Sim and from the Community Series. I think the use of the 5th player on the bench is fantastic. I think it brings a bit of innovation. Different teams saw what Sydney did with Papley, what Pendlebury was able to do last night. So I think it brings a bit of lateral thinking. So I think that probably wasn't spoken as much as some of the other rule changes, but I think that the 5th player on the interchange is, I think it's really exciting and enables teams to do things a little bit differently.
How do you feel about that split of games and 5 games opening round, and now you're playing an opponent that's played a home and away game already?
Don't really have a strong view on it. I understand the significance of opening round for the northern states, and we tend to do a lot for the northern states at the moment. It's just the environment we're in, but that is a lot of the growth of the game. So I think the opportunity to play in New South Wales and Queensland and to have the AFL pretty much dominate that region is a positive. In terms of how it affects us, would we like to play in it? Well, we thought we were playing in it last year. We got derailed by a cyclone, but I don't really have strong views. We're fresh, we're prepared. There's no excuses going into round 1 for us. So we'll see how Richmond go, playing against the side that's already played on Thursday night, and we play the following night. So I don't have a strong view on opening round. I know a lot of people do, but from our perspective, we've always been preparing for round 1, Friday the 13th.
Do we see a debutant, maybe Sharp or Farrell, one of those guys?
Yeah, I think we'll see one. I'm not really reluctant to sort of make any sort of calls. Not that I'm hiding anything away, but we're Monday before a Friday game, so. But certainly on pre-season performance, we're extremely happy with our draftees, and but we're not in a position where we have to blood players. We're not trying to bring young players in just for the sake of being young. We're going to pick the side that's obviously going to give us the best chance, and if that happens to include a couple of debutants, I think that's really exciting for our future.
Just on Andy and what he's bringing, I think players have said he's a really good relationship player, building those relationships. How do you see that will impact the group this season?
So reluctant to use the word connection because everyone talks about it, but every club's trying to do the same thing, which is build a culture of connection where players have a really close bond, and at our club we're trying to connect our entire club, our administration, our football department, our fans, our members, our corporate partners. We're trying to bring everyone along along with us on the journey, and Andy's really good at that. You know, he's well, I've been here 3 or 4 years now, still trying to work out what's wrong with him, because everyone's got some deficiencies. I just haven't found his yet.
Just back on Sharp and Farrow, what's impressed you about those guys in particular for pre-season?
Well, their readiness to play. There's always some concerns about young guys, the fact that just by virtue of their age, they come in and they play against men probably for the first time in their career. That's not the case in Dyson Sharp's situation, because he's always played up as a junior. He's played sandful football. He looks like a 25-year-old the way he plays. So it's a lot's impressed me, but it's just mostly been their readiness for the rigour of AFL football.
What do you make of the boys getting Zach Merritt a Hawthorn jumper in the Secret Santa?
I loved it. If I'd thought of it, it would have been even funnier, I reckon. But they're funnier than I am, those guys. So, but I think it probably speaks to the fact that it's a big deal to everyone. I get it. They're fair questions, but we moved on a long time ago, and now we're at the stage where we're making jokes about it.